Okay, and one last question about the criticisms that that the treasurer had for you and the administration, and then I want to talk about this session itself. But is that about the contracts? I mean, obviously and thankfully, he did recognize that we had contracts. I think he said 19,000 contracts. And he said that he criticized your procedure. As you remember, you did a WWL radio, I guess, discussion with him, and he said this throughout the spring, that you're going to read every contract, okay, and pick out those that pick your interest, and then talk to the different administration head. And that you'd be busy until for the rest of the 4 years. Is that what you said? And what are you doing about the contracts?
Well, we came into this job saying we needed to look at state contracts. So we had too many. We needed to ratchet the number down. We needed to scrutinize how many were absolutely necessary. We were in a situation in this state we literally did not know how many state contracts we had. We know now. In fact, I reported to the legislature in the waning days of the second special session a very extensive report on what our folks had done during the time we were here. And you got to recognize we had lots of irons in the fire here with all these sessions and the budget problems and everything else. We had two very capable people leading a group of people that were looking at contracts and identifying what we were doing. We know, at least we knew at a point in time, because it changes almost every day. On May 27th of 2016, we had 15,023 state contracts. That includes all the contracts that are overseen by the Division of Administration, which I run. It does not include all the contracts, for example, for higher education and a couple of other areas, because the legislature, by its action, has taken them out from under our purview. So we can only talk to the ones that we oversee. As a result of the budget cuts that were put in place since this administration began, and there have been hundreds of millions of dollars in cuts, many departments reduced or eliminated contracts that they had, and we directed them. The governor, through an executive order, directed his cabinet to identify contracts and to take steps to reduce or eliminate those that could be deemed non-essential to provide services that had to be performed by those respective departments or agencies. This is going to be an ongoing effort by us to continue to look closely at our contract situation, and the numbers have gone down dramatically. I just might add, over the course of the past 10 years. I mean, after Katrina, there were a huge number of contracts, and into the 20s, 20,000 number. Mm-hmm. It's down to 15-some-odd thousand now. It's going to continue to shrink, and it's something that we recognize as an issue for the state. But you also have to recognize that as state employees have been cut dramatically. I mean, literally 30,000 or so state employee reduction over the course of the Jindal years, much of that resulting from the closure of the charity hospital system. We have an awful lot less people performing services that people expect to be performed by government. And that means people are having to do more, and that some agencies are having to look to outside providers to do services that are out there. The other big takeaway from the contract discussion is that the 50 or so largest contracts that the state has, and they are mega bucks, they're big bucks, are with outside third parties to, for example, administer the pharmacy program for our group benefits program, contracts with physicians who provide Medicaid services. Virtually everything in state government is done by contract when third parties are involved. They're either cooperative endeavor agreements or they're personal service contracts or what have you. And we're looking at all those contracts, and we're looking to reduce them or eliminate them wherever possible.
So you have other things to do other than sit at your desk and review every one of those contracts.
That's not something I've done, and that's not something I personally am going to do. What we're saying to department heads, the people who run the various departments and agencies of government, that's your responsibility to manage your budget,
right,
and to review these contracts and determine which ones are not necessary, and to establish for us which ones are. And over the course of the next several months, and we'll begin developing the fiscal year 18 budget starting in November. But in the dog days here of summer, and as we get into the fall with no legislative sessions to occupy our time, this is one of the areas we're going to be focused on, is is the number of state contracts and meeting with department heads and saying to them, tell us what you were doing to look at your contract situation, which ones you're reducing, which ones you're eliminating. And that's going to be an ongoing exercise for us as we develop the next fiscal year budget.